Customer service, done right, can be your company's single biggest competitive advantage. Welcome to the Customer Service Revolution. Join customer service authority and best-selling author John DiJulius as he interviews leaders who are revolutionizing their industries. This is more than a podcast, though. It's a movement. The Customer Service Revolution is a radical overthrow of conventional business mentality designed to transform what customers and employees experience. If you are a revolutionary customer service leader who's ready to stop competing on price and obsessed with building a brand that people cannot live without, this podcast is for you.
Welcome to the Customer Service Revolution podcast. I'm Dave Murray, Senior Consultant for the DiJulius Group.
And I am John DiJulius, Chief Revolution Officer of the DiJulius Group.
Today is part 2 of Howard Schultz. John, we had such a great conversation last week about Howard and all the things that he has done and what Starbucks has created, not only in their industry, but for service across all industries. I can't wait to dive into today.
Yeah, I loved it. And I'm so excited I'd like to do every episode on Howard Schultz.
We probably could. But before we get there, just a couple things we have to share with you. First, please remember to subscribe, review, and share with your friends this podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or Stitcher. You could also go back for past shows at tdg.click/podcast. And again, that's where you can subscribe, review us, and please share with your friends, family, colleagues that you think will benefit from the great customer experience that we're talking about on this podcast.
The reviews are so important. It really helps us, the podcast, the Customer Service Revolution podcast, get noticed. And while supplies last, people who review will get put into an auction raffle to win the most comfortable shirt in the world, the coolest shirt in the world that says, "Let's create a customer service revolution." So please subscribe if you haven't already, review, and share.
All right, John, how about if we dive into part 2 of Howard Schultz?
I was hoping you'd say that.
Here we go.
Around this time was my professional highlight. I had spoken for Starbucks in a keynote capacity before, but during this crisis, they reached out and hired the DiJulius Group. And, definitely probably the highlight of my career, because I was in love with the company from a consumer standpoint and from a consultant standpoint of just loving, what the business model stood for. So as you know, Dave, the first thing we do with working in any company is we created a day in the life of a Starbucks customer. And, that's everyone listening to this podcast, whether you go to Starbucks or not. It is just plain the craziness of our life. In normal time, pre the COVID times, we'd be getting up early, typically, and, maybe have to get a workout in and kids ready for school and, get them off. And then we have to get to work and sit in rush hour and morning rush hour and road rage and all those things, and finally get to the office and have meetings and conference calls and hear from, everything. And maybe, an upset customer. Maybe we hear that, our top salesperson is quitting, or who knows. And then we have to, be the taxi cab driver for our, pick up and go to and attend our kids' activities after school, which is all great, but we're going and going and going and going. And I think for everyone, typical day is coming at us 100 miles an hour, and it's a blur. What the cool thing was when we did this exercise and we created with their executive team in Seattle at their corporate office, we created Day in the Life. What kind of the aha from it is Starbucks can't change the fact that if you get a flat tire today, right? They can't change if you get pulled over and get a ticket, or If your client is irate at you because, shipping didn't next day air the package that you said they would, right? They can't prevent that or change that from happening. But what they can do is give you that third party place, that 5-minute or 45-minute escape for you to come in to a peaceful environment, collect yourself, have your drink the way you want to have it, and kind of rejuvenate you to be Superman or Superwoman that we're all trying to be, right? Foolishly, we're all trying to be. And now you can go back and go about your day. That might have been your morning coffee, your lunchtime coffee, or your evening coffee on your way home, or beverage. But it gave you that little pick-me-up escape to now try to be the best version of Dave Murray.
Right.
So that was what the day in the life created. And then the second thing that we always do with every company is we create a customer service vision statement, which is totally different from a mission, a purpose, core value. All those things are really important. But the service vision statement is the action statement that every employee, in their case, every partner, should do every time they interact with someone, be it 5 seconds or 15 minutes.
Absolutely. And I love when you say it's that action statement, because that's really what it is. And one of the things I love about a day in the life video, we're going through that process, is it's a reminder to team members, in Starbucks case partners, it's a reminder to them of what their role is in that and how important they are to providing that. And if they're not on their game, if they're not paying attention, how they can ruin that very easily. And so it's such an important tool that organizations need to have so their team members understand how they play a role in that.
Yeah. And so we spent 2 days with their senior executives and then months after tweaking it, but just coming up with an actionable statement that would resonate with all their frontline partners, because that's the key. The CEO and president and CFO and whatever C-suite can love it and it can make sense to them. It's really not for them.
Right.
It's to inspire the employees that is going to remind and be almost a burden of, I have to do this with every interaction. If you're going to work here, Dave, you're going to have to, whatever that is. And I want, it to be on your mind before you pick up the next phone call. Even if the last person screamed at you and took it out on you, you can't punish the next call or the next meeting or the next customer coming up to place an order.
Right. It's the starting point of what we refer to as the burden of the brand, right? You living up to that Starbucks experience that our customers have either heard about, that draws them in for the first time, or that they long for, that brings them back over and over again, and your role in living up to delivering that.
Yeah. So it was the coolest thing. So the customer service vision statement was, or is, we create inspired moments in each customer's day. We create inspired moments in each customer's day. And that was really important because it had to, fit a lot of criteria. It wasn't brand new. And, another thing that, the employees had, it was taken from parts of their mission statements, purpose statement, and core values. So it was just kind of pulled, which was very important to them. They didn't want to have their employees say, oh, here's something new. So each of these words have legacy meaning. We create inspired moments in each customer's day. And I'll never forget working with Craig Russell, the vice president of operations. And he was like our primary contact. He said he wanted a service vision that was so actionable that he could, figuratively or, watch someone and watch you greet someone, watch you pick up the phone, watch you interact and say yes or no. That's how important it was. And to them, they felt, we create inspired moments in each customer's day was that. So if someone come up and you take their order and, how can I help you? I want to, you say, what's your drink?
That's an iced, just an iced coffee.
Just an iced coffee. I've never heard such a simple order.
That's it.
Usually it's like a formula that someone has to text me because I'll never remember. Okay, iced coffee, and then they throw it up. Iced coffee, right? And then you say, I'm sorry, I wanted sugar-free, and I don't think this is sugar-free. And they might say, you didn't ask for sugar-free. I'll remake it, but you didn't ask.
Yeah.
All those, throwing up drinks, just calling out orders, that's not an inspired moment.
Right.
So making you wrong isn't an inspired moment. So, that they felt that. And then just as important is to the service vision is the pillars. And to us, the pillars are the how you do it. Mm-hmm. So, your service vision is to make people happy. Okay, great. How do I do that? And so the Starbucks pillars are anticipate, connect, personalize, and own. And literally every company these can be their pillars.
Sure.
I don't care if you're a law firm, a manufacturer. Think about it. So anticipate is, anticipate your customer, their unintended request, and anticipate 6 a.m. and you come in a suit and you have a Bluetooth device on. Maybe you're on your phone. Maybe you're on a call already. And so, you're in a hurry. Mm-hmm. You don't want me to say, hey, how's your day? You need to get in and get out. Versus, you come in every day at 9:05 after you drop your son, Will, off at school. And you usually hang out for a little while. That's a different interaction.
Right.
You're going to be hanging out. Dave, what do you got going on today? You're dressed up, got a meeting, you got so anticipate. The second pillar is connect. Make a connection. So maybe Dave is a regular, and Dave, you want your iced coffee with milk,
yep.
And you feel like a VIP. Maybe I've never seen Dave before. So I just might, make a connection. I love your tie. Love those glasses. You have, a big day ahead of you. And there's a way to make a connection without extending the time. The third pillar is personalize. I don't think there's a company in the world that personalizes better than Starbucks. There's over 170,000 ways you can order your Starbucks drink. Right? You can order a iced coffee with milk, and I can order it with, 17 other extra shots. I forget what their terms are, the red eye, the black eye.
Yeah.
Those are extra shots of espresso.
Yeah.
Sugar-free means, I forget what it means, their terminology, light, or I don't know. But there's so many ways.
There are.
And that's why people love Starbucks. It might not be that it's their favorite drink, but it's their drink, right? It's their order. They have their specialty. And then the last pillar, own. That's my favorite. Well, I don't know if I can say it's my favorite. Connect, personalize, all those. But the own is that you come in and you grab your drink and you take a sip and you have a kind of a funny face, funnier than normal, right?
Right.
I, as the frontline barista that's been working there 3 days or 3 years, can say, is that not what you wanted? I'd be happy to make it again or make you something different. I can own that. Mm-hmm. Versus kind of having the attitude, that's what you ordered.
Right?
You don't like it, that's what you ordered. I gave you what you ordered. Or if your daughter drops her hot chocolate, they're encouraged to own the experience and give her a new one. Versus having the mentality, well, she dropped it.
Right.
I didn't knock it out of her hand.
You already handed it off.
Right. And it was half drank.
Yeah.
Right. So I love this. I just think that, that whole package, we create inspired moments in each customer's day, anticipate, connect, personalize, and own. And I think the biggest thrill, I have two of this was put on every apron at every Starbucks, every partner in the world. We travel to Spain and they had it on theirs. We traveled to Nashville. It was so cool. They eventually, got new aprons and they advertised it somewhere else. But I used to bug watch this. Yeah. Can you show me the inside? And they'd flip it over.
Yeah.
But think about the brilliance of that to, get you, the Starbucks employee you see it now 20 times a day, putting it on and putting it off.
Well, I love the fact that I've heard you talk about before during the creation process. Starbucks was talking about having it on the inside of the apron because they literally wanted it to be the customer service manual, right? They wanted the service vision statement and those pillars to remind their team members to do whatever they need to do in any situation. That should solve a problem. That should be their go-to and should allow them to be able to handle that situation. One more that I want to add on the own pillar is I've had a couple of experiences. One that comes to mind in particular, where I've been in a Starbucks and made a purchase, was with the kids, bought some things, and someone came up to us right after the transaction, a manager, and said, "We're sorry, you waited longer than our normal time we'd like you to wait. Your next purchase is going to be on us," and handed us one of those cards for the next purchase. And what I love about that is they give their team members the autonomy to do that. A lot of organizations would be scared to have their team members handing those cards out and what that could mean, but they want their team members to have those as a tool to use them to make sure they're providing the best experience.
Which applies to a key commandment of ours.
It does.
Which commandment?
Zero risk,
Zero
right?
risk.
When things go wrong, making sure that they have the autonomy to make it right.
And I love that. And listen, I'll be honest, because this is around the same time when Starbucks was creating that free drink because your experience wasn't all that. What do you think their initial fear was?
Like anyone else, I'm sure they were worried that they were going to be a crutch and be giving away too many, given away to their friends and all those things.
You sneezed. Oh, I'm sorry. Here's a free drink for your next one. 7 years later, this is 7 years later, it's still a long time ago, way more than 7 years ago. What do you think they're disappointed in?
Well, I know the answer. And like most organizations that go down this path, they were worried that there were lost opportunities, that the cards weren't being used enough.
They weren't being used. At first, we're nervous. Oh my God, we're going to get taken advantage of.
Yeah.
People are going to ask for them. Hey, you made me wait an extra 3 seconds. My friend no one did. And they thought, one example is, a person comes in at their lunch hour and orders like 12 drinks, like he or she's the gopher for the office.
Right.
Goes back, realizes that, Starbucks didn't make 12 drinks, one of them not right, or forgot one. Only kidding. And you're like, hey, where's mine? Oh, I'll go get it. Goes back, tells the barista, and the barista says, oh, sorry, and makes it and gives it to him. And, their general manager says, why didn't you give them, a thing? I mean, that person just lost their lunch hour.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't think about it. And I mean, that's a great opportunity. But sometimes the employees, can be, not scared, but protective of the brand.
Right.
And, we have found, even in our companies, we encourage our employees to make things right. And sometimes, they're not aggressive enough. And I love that. When I've been made to wait, I'm not expecting it, and they give me this card. From a business owner standpoint, I like it because they're not comping my drink today.
Right.
I didn't lose the sales as a business owner, but they're saying your next drink's on us because this wasn't. And what I love about it as a consumer is you're recognizing this shouldn't have happened this way. And that's the most important thing to me versus you just made me wait 10 extra minutes, drive back, do whatever, and you just hand it. And there was no apology, hey, this shouldn't have. So how do I know it's not going to happen regularly?
Right.
But when you give me this card saying, I'm sorry, your experience wasn't what we wanted you to have, that makes me feel a lot better that you recognize that you're probably going to try to reduce it from happening again.
Right.
I love that example. That's a great example. So I told you I had 2 high points in this. One was that it was put on every apron in the world of every Starbucks employee. And the second one was Craig Russell, the vice president of operations for Starbucks, who's on one of our podcasts. He came back, and when the team finally came up with this, before we could launch it, he had to take it to Howard. And, we were all nervous. Howard might hate this. And Craig comes back into the room. And we're like, what did he think? And he looked at the service vision we create, inspired moments in each customer's day, and pillars, anticipate, connect, personalize, and own. And he slides it back over to Craig. And he said, Craig, I don't think we've ever done a more important initiative than this. And that was like, we were like, bouncing on like, man, we nailed it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It was cool.
So John, one of the really cool things about the work that we have done with Starbucks is, I always tell groups that I'm speaking to, especially when we're talking about a service vision, I always share with them that, I can't stand up in front of you and say that, thank goodness for the DiJulius Group, otherwise Starbucks wouldn't be the Starbucks we know today. But what we do know is that the work you did with Starbucks when you were out in Seattle working with Craig and his team really helped refocus them and get to where they are today, right? It was one of those important tools in their toolbox to get to the Starbucks that we all know and love today. Agreed.
And I think everyone knows they're a pretty successful business again.
Yes, so they are.
They certainly recovered from Howard stepping back in and once again giving that executive sponsorship that was so key to any company's success.
We want to go back to what we really stand for. And we want to provide our customers and our people a sense of pride and confidence in the authenticity of the Starbucks experience.
We have a lot of work to do, but our research tells us we're making real progress on every measure of customer satisfaction.
We're not in the transaction speed business. We're in the business, literally, of enhancing people's day.
Starbucks' best days, I truly believe, are in front of us.
We've never been in the coffee business serving people. We've always been in the people business serving coffee.
Wow. I love that. I mean, that's so cool. We are not in the coffee business serving people. We are in the people business serving coffee. Like that right there kind of epitomizes why Starbucks is who they are.
One of the things about this quote that I love is you feel this when you walk into a Starbucks, right? You can tell that's what they're thinking as opposed to just another customer, just another cup of coffee I have to make. You really feel that. That's one of the things that separates them from the competition out there because that is what they deliver.
Well, it's so funny that people love to beat up on millennials.
Mm-hmm.
It's ironic because it's typically the generation that raised millennials, right?
Yeah.
But when you go to a Ritz-Carlton, a Chick-fil-A, a Starbucks, or an Apple store, which are kind of all, brands that people can't live without, they have millennials working there.
Mm-hmm.
And they're no different. And that's why I love this quote. The currency for millennials is purpose.
Right.
I love that. And, you could almost argue the currency for anyone, baby boomers to Gen Z is purpose. But I think what millennials taught us, they taught us a valuable lesson as leaders. They aren't willing to trade hours for dollars.
Right.
That you better do something, give me something. Otherwise, I will look for the best deal. 50 cents an hour, evenings off, weekends off, all those things become more important. Just like to a customer, if you're not providing an exceptional emotional experience, you better be the cheapest.
Right.
You better be the best or you better be the cheapest. And in our 3 companies, we have over 100 millennials, and they are phenomenal. They are phenomenal because I believe we do a really good job of showing them, like Starbucks, and that's who we learned it from, showing them the part that they play in our purpose, in our service vision. And that's what a strong service vision does, is it rallies your people around a reason to get out of bed and run to work because I can make a difference. I could give someone a free drink today and I won't get in trouble. I have that autonomy.
Yep. It's interesting, John. Millennials really kind of got a bad rap as job jumpers, right? That they would just go to the next career, the next best thing. But when you think about it, it's not so much them job jumping as it is companies not delivering the purpose, right? It's not, the companies aren't delivering what they're looking for, and that's what they are seeking. And so that's why they're moving to their next opportunity.
Yeah, and it's on the company, and quit dissing millennials. I think millennials are the best workforce I've ever had, and we've had, every age group. If you create meaning and tie their job to a purpose, they will give up better deals on paper and make more sacrifices than other generations I have found. And the proof is, again, go get checked in and at a Ritz-Carlton, and go to Chick-fil-A and go to Apple and go to Starbucks, and they have millennials working there crushing it.
Right.
The currency for millennials is purpose. Another thing I loved about what he said in that quote, in the shortest quotes, there's so much. He said, we're in the business of enhancing people's day. I mean, again, every time he speaks, he brings it back to a different level.
Yep.
We're not in the coffee business serving people. We're in the people business serving coffee.
Yeah.
I want to work for that.
Right.
And so I challenge every, business listening. What business are you in? Right? Do you make, manufacture gloves? Do you sell financial services? That's boring. That doesn't make me excited. Do you sell consulting services? That doesn't make me excited. That doesn't make me, jump out of bed and want to sell consulting. But changing the world by creating a customer service revolution, I can get behind that.
Right.
I have.
Yes, you have. But, the interesting thing is we're all in the people business.
We are.
You have to be in the people business. Otherwise, you're not going to have a business. But that's so easy to forget.
Yeah. And we work with lawyers and accountants and tons of professional in the medical field, doctors, and listen, they're very, very smart. There's a lot of smart consultants.
Sure.
And, I always say, if my accountant that saved me $25,000 last year in my income taxes because of a tax loophole. Well, I'm happy. I'm pretty sure any accounting firm I go to would know that same tax loophole. So your financial brilliance, your customer service brilliance, whatever your brilliance is, by itself is a commodity. And if that's all you're offering, I can find it, a lot of other places.
Absolutely.
So you better be in the people business, to your point.
Well, it's not only competitors these days, it's YouTube, it's the internet, right? That information exists everywhere today.
Yep.
So one of the things that we always help companies create when we're doing a service vision with them, and you already talked about, John, how you were out in Seattle working with Craig Russell and his team at Starbucks on their service vision and their pillars. Another tool that we created usually at that same time is what we call the nevers and always. And those are behaviors that are for the entire organization. So it's not just one department. It's not for one team. It's not just for the customer service department. It's for everybody, whether you're Howard Schultz at the top to the most recently hired team member that's walking through the door today for their first day on the job. These apply to all of us. And the list that Starbucks created is so powerful and so important. There are three in particular that I love to share whenever I'm speaking with any organization on what these are and what this tool really does. And I'm going to share them with you now. The first three never behaviors that Starbucks has on their list is never prioritize tasks over customers. Now think about that for a minute. Never prioritize tasks over customers. As a consumer, just in your typical day-to-day, how often does that happen to you when you get the, wait a minute, be right with you, just got to finish this. It happens all of the time.
You walk into a doctor's office.
Oh, yeah.
And you're trying to check in, and she's, getting the last chart put away and this. And again, I'm fine with that. She wants to do that to stay organized. But look up and greet me.
Right.
Just, sign language that I know you're standing in front of me and I'll be right there versus like, do I need to send off a flare to get you to realize I'm standing in front of you?
And keeping it on that doctor's office theme, John, this next one happens there quite a bit as well. Their second never on this list is never view customers as an interruption. right? Think about your own business for a moment. How often does that happen during the course of any given day, whether it's the phone ringing while I'm doing something that I deem as important, whether it's a customer walking into one of your locations, whatever that looks like in your world, how often is that happening? I'm going to guess if it's not checked, it's probably happening pretty often.
Well, you're not an interruption. You're the reason I have a job.
Right.
But what I like Starbucks does with their nevers and always, probably know better than me. You do this more with our clients than I do now, but they counter them. Some people have an independent nevers
Yes.
and an independent always. In this case, like you said, they're never prioritize task over customers, always offer a genuine, friendly greeting.
Right.
So the opposite. Never view customers as an interruption, always smile and make eye contact. Mm-hmm. So I love it because they're giving you what not to do and what you should be doing.
Right. And the third one that I want to share on their list of nevers, which again, happens every day in every industry, no matter what you do, never treat people as transactions, right? And again, as Howard Schultz said, they're in the business of enhancing people's day. So this is a reminder to them. We don't treat people as transactions. We enhance their day. Their always to that is say thank you and show appreciation. Show appreciation that they came to your store that day at that time, that they're buying your product, whatever it is, right? So never treat people as transactions.
And one of my favorites is never make the customer wrong.
Oh, yeah.
Always assume positive intent. I love that, which goes to one of my favorite quotes is, don't punish 98% of the customers for what you're afraid 2% are going to try to get away with, So never make the customer wrong, just make it right.
Right. John, speaking of don't punish the 98%, when we take that a step further, and we talk about this in a lot of our workshops, when you look at a lot of organizational policies, a lot of those are written for just that, for what people are going to try and get away with. And when you take a step back and think about it, you are punishing all your good customers out there. They have to go through all these hoops and things for that 2 or 4%, whatever it is in your industry, that you're trying to stop from getting away with something.
So along with other things from the past 2 episodes on Howard Schultz, if you go to our landing page, tdg.click/podcast, you will see things like the Starbucks nevers and always that I'm sure you're going to want to read and borrow some great ideas because there's a lot of good ones, as well as their service vision and pillars.
Exactly. You know what, John? Now that we've covered their nevers and always, I think it might be time to get to your favorite quote.
I love quotes.
You do.
I love quotes. To the point that I wrote a book, the best customer service quotes ever said. And at the time when I wrote this book, I published 336 of my favorite quotes in customer service. And I did the first probably 50 in order of my absolute favorite, which was hard. And number 1 in my book is by none other than
Howard Schultz.
How did you know?
I had a good guess.
I love this quote. I mean, I can't tell you from a customer service standpoint, I think this quote should be on the back of every wall that employees go see. But also, if you change one word of it, where it says customers, if you change that word to others, I believe this is just how we should live our life. Mm-hmm. So, do you want to read it?
I'd be happy to.
All right.
So Howard says, we are at our best when we are creating enduring relationships and personal connections. When we are fully engaged, we connect with, laugh with, and uplift the lives of our customers. Even if it is just for a few moments, it's about the human connection.
Read it again.
I'd love to. We are at our best when we are creating enduring relationships and personal connections. When we are fully engaged, we connect with, laugh with, and uplift the lives of our customers. Even if it's just for a few moments, It's about the human connection.
I wrote a blog on this a few years ago, and I broke each sentence down. It's so simple. That's it. That's about life, right? I mean, we're at our best. We're creating enduring relationships and personal connections. I mean, that's what we love about our best friends, people when we engage, we connect with. I mean, it's about the human connections, even if it's just for a few moments. I mean, that's what Starbucks has mastered.
Yep.
And
that's what you feel when you walk into Starbucks.
And that's what I feel when I see someone that, I get excited about seeing, because they know me and they make me smile and they make me feel important. And I just think that should be our number one intent in every interaction. And whether it might be impossible to do that 100%, maybe we do it 25% of the time, or some of us do it 40%. But can you imagine if we could move that 5% more?
Mm-hmm.
Right? The self-fulfillment, and not to mention what it does to the business and KPIs and revenue and growth and client retention and all those other things.
The other thing I love about this quote, and when I'm out there working with our client base and presenting, and I use this quote, use these thoughts of Howard, it is such a great reminder that at the end of the day, they're talking about these human connections and uplifting lives. They're selling coffee, right? They're just selling coffee. But it's more than that. It goes back to them being in the people business, right? So I challenge, when I'm working with clients, I challenge them, what does this look like in your world? How can you uplift your customers? How can you make those emotional connections with your customers? Because you can, if you try. Chances are you've just never gone down that path.
Right. Being fully engaged. To me, that's being present. One of my favorite quotes is, must be present to win.
Yep.
And, something I like to say is, you should be so engaged, so present with the person you're talking to, on the phone, in a video Zoom, face to face, your son or daughter, your significant other. You're so giving them, your attention that someone could blow a firecracker off and you wouldn't hear it. You wouldn't notice it. Right? That's being, giving someone, your utmost attention. Absolutely. All right. I love this next clip, Dave, because it must be 12 years old. And when I found it, I just loved it because it is so timely, because he is talking about how to handle and navigate your business through an economic crisis.
Right.
So obviously, this interview was done during the Great Recession between 07, 08, 09. But man, what he talks about is so appropriate for what we're all living in now.
Absolutely.
We are in the midst of a seismic change in the way consumers are responding to product, services. As a result of the downturn in the economy, every single customer that we have as business people has less money than they've had before. And even if the economy was corrected today, it's going to have a long tail to it. And something that isn't talked about enough, but is real and tangible, is the customer today has such access to information, coupled with parity in the marketplace, that as a result of that, they are asking difficult and piercing questions about a company's values, ethics, and integrity, even how you're treating your people. And because there's parity in the marketplace, those companies that do the right thing, not for marketing, not for a press release, but are integrating a social conscious commitment into the business, in which it really has a seat at the table, are going to attract and retain great people who are going to be proud to work for the company, and customers are going to gravitate to those companies or products or services because the consumer wants to support companies or brands whose values are like-minded to their own.
What do you think?
I think it's great. There's so many great takeaways in that particular video.
Next section I want to get into about what I love about, Howard Schultz as a leader and as a human being is the social responsibility that, consumers look today at companies' values, ethics, and integrity, and that they have to have a social conscious commitment.
And I love the fact that he even mentions it boils down even to how you treat your people, right? That consumers care about that today. Maybe 20 years ago, that wasn't as much of an issue or part of the thought process, but today it is.
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah, and it shows you like Glassdoor.
Yes.
Which is, I believe, primarily a rating for former employees or existing employees.
Existing too, yep.
And consumers look at that.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't like, what employees or former employees say about you, they use that as a decision if they want to do business with you.
Absolutely.
Okay, so getting into the social responsibility, we have a few clips that are just great. And this is why I have one of the many reasons why I have so much respect for Howard Schultz. He's not afraid to take on tough social issues head on. And, with the Black Lives Matter years ago, he rolled out something where he had, all his baristas write on Let's Talk or Race Together. And it actually blew up on him because he didn't think it out well enough. But obviously his intentions were great. And so he supports, gay marriages. Right or wrong, whether you agree with it or not, he supports it. And what I really like about, his passion, conviction is our next clip. It was at a shareholder meeting, and he was being criticized and advised from his shareholders, why don't you back off on your feelings on gay marriages because we feel it's hurting the stock. And I loved his response. I mean, I love this.
Because not every decision is an economic decision. Despite the fact that you recite statistics that are narrow in time, we did provide a 38% shareholder return over the last year. I don't know how many things you invest in, but I would suspect not many things, companies, products, investments have returned 38% over the last 12 months. Having said that, it is not an economic decision. The lens in which we are making that decision is through the lens of our people. We employ over 200,000 people in this company, and we want to embrace diversity of all kinds. If you feel, respectfully, that you can get a higher return than the 38% you got last year, it's a free country. You can sell your shares at Starbucks and buy shares in other companies.
So, I think it's important there. One of the things that he does is he's really bringing it back to his team members, right? When you think about they have 200,000 partners and such a diverse workforce, that's where it has to start, right? You have to start with those team members and then build that service culture outward from there. And that's really what he's talking about here, that they have to include all their team members, have everyone feel equal and part of this, and then they can go out and deliver the great service that we've come to expect from Starbucks.
Well, we have too many examples of greed, from the Enrons of the world to the banks, and too many examples. And too many companies, their number one group they're trying to please are their shareholders and board of directors. So many things he says. Not everything is an economic decision. So he's proving that shareholders aren't my number one concern. They will be the byproduct, and obviously they are. And we're looking at it from the lens of our people. So another great, and we're going to provide a link to this in our show notes, is his commencement speech to Arizona State University, which it's one of my favorite, if not the favorite commencement speech I ever heard.
Your generation can bring people together like no other. You will make it so racism only exists in history books. You will be the generation that teaches the world that we are at our best when we recognize, respect, and celebrate our diversity. You can and you will make your mark on our country and our shared humanity. Dream big, and then dream bigger. A more innovative dream, a more inclusive dream.
I love it. I mean, to be 22 and about to walk off the campus of your university and, become an adult and get into a profession and to have someone of Howard Schultz's stature to say, your generation will make racism only exist in the history books. That's powerful.
Yeah. The thing about Howard too that I want to point out that's also very powerful is they've had missteps. They've had issues. All companies make mistakes. We all make mistakes, right? But not only is he a great leader and he's moving Starbucks forward, but when they've had those issues, they've addressed them the right way. They got their team members the training they needed. They made news for taking a hit financially, right? By closing stores for half a day and getting their team members the training they needed in order to move on and serve all customers.
Yeah, they're certainly not perfect. I mean, they were the ones, I think it was a location, Starbucks in Philadelphia, that 2 African-American men came in, sat down, waiting for, someone to come for a meeting. And because they didn't order something, they called the police on them.
Right.
And that's, what you're talking about is they reacted to it immediately and, gave, closed down and gave sensitivity training. If you just think about the financial dollars of closing down, 10,000 locations worldwide, it's crazy.
But you also have to think at the same time, what a powerful message that sends to their partners, right?
Yes.
This is important.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And then, the other part he had in here, which I love, is dream big and then dream bigger.
Yes.
I love that. I really do.
So another cool thing about Howard Schultz is that he doesn't rest on his laurels, right? He didn't create this great brand of Starbucks in these 10,000 stores across the globe. He's always looking for something that's next. What's the next thing that he can do? What's the next great thing that we can deliver to our customers? And I know that you've gotten to see this and hear about this kind of firsthand in some of the things you've been working on in the past, especially when you were out in Seattle. I got to visit one when I was on a recent trip to Chicago, and it's fantastic. You want to tell us about it?
The crazy thing is that he's already made price irrelevant. He took the average cup of coffee, 50 cents to $1, and he's, come out charging $3.50, and now it's over $5 in a lot of places. And it's working. They're the busiest.
Right.
And you think he pushed the envelope far enough. And now he opens Reserve Roastery, which is a massive, what he calls the Willy Wonka of coffee.
Yeah.
And it's a mind-blowing experience. It's like a winery of coffee. And you see it being made, machines and the coffee grounds being passed out. And you can order a pallet of, 6 different coffees. I believe the average cup of coffee is $12. If you're so bold, see what I did there?
Mm-hmm.
If you're so bold,
I like that.
You could order a cup of coffee for $52. $52, and people do. Yeah. It's like the most expensive brandy in the bar. Like, people want to know what a $52 cup of coffee, tastes like. I mean, the guy, like we said, he don't ask the customers what they want. Give them something they can't live without.
Well, when I visited the location in Chicago, I had a bourbon coffee, which is something that I never thought I would want to try. And it was amazing.
Yeah, I believe they have beer, coffee. It's crazy. So this next clip talks about his vision for going into this model.
I would say in our 43-year history, this is as historic moment as there possibly could be in opening up this roastery and this majestic place that will take our customers on a magical carpet ride. 9.5 years ago, I wrote in a journal, let's create the Willy Wonka of coffee. And what I wanted to try and do is create this multi-sensory experience with theater, romance, drama, and have the coffee moving around and create a real roasting manufacturing facility. And we've done it.
Think of how retail has been reinvented and what's working. The movie theaters where you can recline, have a bottle of wine and real food, like a dinner.
Yep.
Right? That's an experience.
Yep.
I mean, there's so many cool places. What is the bank? Capital One? Cafes.
Capital One Cafes.
Right? Not your parents' bank.
Right.
I mean, just total different. That you could actually come in there and it's like a Starbucks and you don't have to do banking. But oh, by the way, you might as well. It's pretty convenient.
And similarly, there's other retail that are really trying to incorporate hospitality, working restaurants in, having a bar on site. There's a lot of locations in New York City that are moving towards that trend. The Starbucks roastery in Chicago, each level is different, right? So there's a coffee level. On the 4th floor, I believe it's the bar level where they have a full service bar. So there's people hanging out there like they would at any other bar or restaurant. And then they also have a roof deck at the top of that building as well. It's amazing.
Well, look at the other retailers that are the rage. Top Golf.
Yep.
Right? I haven't done it yet, but man, does it sound like a blast. To the point that companies like Amazon are getting into the bricks and mortar.
Yes.
And so Amazon Go, you can walk in, never have to come in contact with a human being, use your iPhone as, and scan you in, literally take things and put them in your basket and walk out the store. That's how easy, I call it experience tail, different from experiential. Experience tail, where you have experience and retail and you merge it, which gives you experience tail.
Yeah.
And that's how you compete with the Amazons of this world. And, because again, we need to go places. Now more than ever, we do need a third-party place, which is almost a second-party place outside of home and just being locked up. And it doesn't only have to be Starbucks.
Right. And it's so true that right now, organizations that are truly delivering an experience in any way they can, deliver that memorable experience and finding that right mix, right? So it's not all digital, it's not all mobile, it's not all bricks and mortar. It's really finding that right mix that is really going to resonate with your consumer.
Well, I'm going to use one more quote here, Dave, that, one of my many by Howard Schultz. I think this is the best way to wrap up our 2-part series on Howard Schultz. People want to be part of something larger than themselves. They want to be part of something that they are proud of, that they'll fight for, sacrifice, and that they trust. I think that's what Starbucks has built, and that's why they have raving employees and raving customers that can't sometimes go a day without them.
Right.
So that wraps up our 2-part series podcast of Howard Schultz. And I don't know about you, but I really enjoyed this.
This has been great. And, we could even do another. So there might be a part 3 on Howard Schultz at some point down the road on this podcast.
I'm in.
Yeah,
you didn't have to twist my arm. We want to thank you for being part of this podcast. We would love for you to, if you haven't yet, subscribe. Please review us and share it with your friends and colleagues who you think would benefit from joining the customer service revolution. And as always, show notes, links to many of the things we talked about, like Starbucks service vision, their nevers and always, Howard Schultz's commencement speech, and many other things will be at our website, tdg.click/podcast.
And don't forget, you can find us and subscribe at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you like to listen. Thank you for joining us on the Customer Service Revolution podcast. This has been a blast, and we will see you next time.